The post-holiday momentum hangover isn't imaginary, but it's also not an excuse to completely lack direction in January or come into the year feeling foggy or unclear.
What's up and welcome to Sam Miller Science, where you're joining me just over a decade into my personal journey of working to bridge the gap between metabolism, macros, muscle, and medicine, all while helping coaches scale the impact that they desire and deserve. If you are here, thank you so much for listening and for trusting me to help you elevate your coaching game or to lead you in your transformation to realize your true potential. In either case, each week I'll be sharing my methods, models, and message to serve as leverage for your specific goals. Without further ado, let's get on to today's show.
What most people experience during this window isn't actually from burnout or exhaustion, even though a few of you might be completely tired of a few in-laws or distant relatives that you had to spend a lot of time with around the holiday. What you're probably feeling is a quiet drop in momentum that people don't always have the language to articulate or explain. It's not about overindulging anymore from over the holidays. It's not necessarily about being lazy or lack of effort. It feels more like things just stop clicking the way they were a month or two ago or even before the holidays. Days feel looser, routines aren't quite as anchored. You're doing roughly the same things in terms of your schedule, but the traction just isn't there. And most people immediately make that to mean something about their discipline, their motivation, or thinking they need some type of reset. And that's usually the wrong conclusion, because momentum is rarely about effort. It's often about systems and structure. So the holidays quietly dismantle a lot of the systems that were propping momentum up in the first place for most people. So this episode isn't about hype, getting back on track, or forcing a fresh start. It's actually about understanding why this momentum fades in the first place and what actually restores it and how to rebuild it without feeling like you're broken. So the first thing we're going to need here is accountability, because accountability is a system, not an inborn trait that people are just born with. And there's actually 3 layers to this. Peer-to-peer accountability, which is this idea that community creates friction against slipping further away from your goals and the progress you need to be making. This could be a training partner. This could be being in a group chat. It may be something you pay for, like a mentorship or some type of structured cohort program, or even coaching. Now, coach-led accountability is slightly different than peer-to-peer accountability, and it's almost like you get this borrowed belief from your coach, and this is super important when confidence dips. So this is why coaching works even when someone already has the information that they feel they need to succeed. Momentum is often restored through clarity and strategy, not just motivation. Then self-accountability actually comes last. A lot of people think this is the starting point, but it's actually the byproduct of having a good structure to begin with. If someone's relying on self-accountability in isolation, they're really, having to deal with some of the hardest part of this for no reason whatsoever. The second part is your physiology. Holidays come with predictable inputs. You're sitting more, you're driving and flying to visit family, more static postures, irregular meals, less light exposure, and sometimes you just have less movement or exercise that's planned compared to your normal routine. So momentum often returns when we get back into motion. So this could be walking daily or after meals, getting some light exposure in the morning. You can also use heat and cold to accelerate this, not necessarily for some crazy biohack or trying to lose more body fat, but because it can be a helpful way to trigger alertness for some, or using the sauna as a way to just kind of restore and have some parasympathetic activity. Now, the third thing we need to do is actually a time audit. You can help to rebuild that identity faster and cultivate momentum. And instead of just goal setting, instead we want to ask, when was I most aligned last year, or maybe within the last 90 to 180 days? When was my best stretch of momentum? How was I structuring my days? What was I practicing? Maybe what were some things that you were saying no to? And then look at those inputs that were present during that historical time period when you had the most momentum versus what you're doing now. Momentum isn't always created in the future. Sometimes you can reclaim it from a version of yourself that already existed in the past, and you have proof that you've done those things, and you may even be able to look at a Google Calendar or look at your planner to-do list and see that you've accomplished these things before. It's just a matter of getting back to those structures, systems, and activities. Now, the fourth key piece of beating any type of holiday funk or downturn is going to be your environment, because your environment can either feel like this heavy tax as you work towards your goals or a tailwind that gives you a lot of momentum, right? So if we have the wrong environment, it feels like an anchor, it drains your ambition. The right rooms create almost this flywheel effect, or it feels like a positive snowball. This could be just switching gyms to be in a different environment. It could be a matter of putting yourself in the right social circles or the right mentorship. Sometimes it comes from adding support. Sometimes it comes from removing friction or getting away from things that aren't serving you. So leaving the wrong environment can be as powerful as joining the right one. This applies to things like gyms, mentorships, workspaces, digital environments. It could be social circles. Sometimes it comes from adding support. Other times you're just removing friction from the wrong places. So you're just not showing up someplace that is not serving you or not helping you with your goals. A great example of this is if someone's on a sobriety journey, it's probably not a great idea to go to a bar. The next fifth piece that we're going to talk about today is the idea of mental real estate. So your mental real estate can often really determine how you are feeling and what you're thinking. So what you consume becomes this background noise of your nervous system. So what are you watching every day? What are you listening to? What are you reading? Who has consistent access to your attention? If it's things like mainstream media or gossip news or reading unhelpful magazines, content isn't entertainment during low momentum seasons. It's a way to actually prime yourself to be in the state that you want to be. Things like books, podcasts, long form content that helps you to think and restore perspective can really help when all of the short form content and noise fragments it. These inputs don't need to be inspirational. They can actually feel stabilizing or just have a calming presence and help you feel like you're thinking on the page that you need to be for your goals. Now, our sixth step is something that might actually surprise you. And I call this nearsighted thinking. It's almost a strategic tool. So just like someone who has vision troubles might be either nearsighted or farsighted, this is actually a strategy when you're trying to build momentum. So if goals feel very distant, if they feel blurry, we can shrink the time horizon, tighten our focus to daily compartments, and really look at what's in front of you on the calendar just for this week and for today. So momentum is rebuilt in small, visible wins, not year-long grand declarations. The holiday hangover isn't a signal to reinvent yourself or go on some crazy reset. It's a matter of reestablishing systems that may have already worked for you previously. And momentum doesn't require motivation. It requires accountability, strategy, and the right environment. The truth is, for most people who listen to this show, you've probably had some time over the past 3 months, 6 months, year, or even 2 years where you've made a bit of progress towards your goals. And somewhere along the line, you got a little off track, maybe you got discouraged, or the holidays dismantled some of the routine structures and systems you had in place that was creating a lot of momentum for you. And so what you need right now isn't necessarily something super extreme, but it is a matter of reverse engineering what we were doing well previously. And if you feel like you were super far off track before, we can have an honest assessment about what we really need to be doing in order to reach our goals. And many of the 6 things I mentioned today, even if you feel like you weren't doing a perfect job before, we can start to find alignment and get back on track, whether that's through accountability in a peer-to-peer format, hiring a coach, getting in the right environment, or leaving the wrong one, or even beginning to put the right things in our mind to help us achieve our goals and begin to get on track this year. Even listening to this podcast is a great start. You've already been doing one of these things, like listening to today's show, even if you feel like you've been off track previously. So don't beat yourself up. Out of these 6 things, focus on 3 or 4 that you can do right now, whether that's reverse engineering your calendar, whether that's looking for some positive content to consume. Now, don't become a success zombie and just read tons of books and listen to podcasts with zero action. We want to make sure that there's actions attached. Maybe it's a part of being in a better group or environment for yourself, or leaving the wrong one, or it could also mean that we're seeking out some form of accountability. And that could be peer-to-peer accountability like a gym buddy, or it could mean hiring a coach or mentor in order to feel that you are in the right environment to help you achieve your goals. If you feel that someone would benefit from this episode, please share it. You can do so anywhere on social media and tag me. I'm at Sam Miller Science on just about every major platform. If you're watching on video on YouTube, please give a thumbs up and subscribe so you never miss a video episode. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, drop a 5-star rating and review so people know that this is a good place to stop by and spend their time on the audio feed. As always, I appreciate you tuning in today and supporting the show. I will talk to you in the next episode.